So first off, I want to address something. Y'all using the word nerd like it's a bad thing. I feel like
Nerd.
no. Hold on. Let me talk.
Yeah.
You're on the side saying nothing. Let me talk. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Tiger TV YouTube channel. My name is Briahn Hawkins, and it is not only the final week of classes for the year, but it's also the final week of Tiger TV for the year. Let's be for real, I don't think anyone was expecting the end of the year to go like this at all, but we've been doing the best that we can, and as Tiger TV station manager, I am very proud of everyone who's been a part of Tiger TV just throughout this entire school year with the way that everybody's been handling everything. But enough about that. We're gonna get into this video, but I want to give you all a little bit of some background behind it. So I was scrolling through Instagram a little while ago, and I came across this post from this one account. I'm gonna put their ad over here, Embracing Black Culture. They're my favorite Instagram account at the moment, so if you're not following them, I highly recommend that you do. So their post actually came from Twitter, and there's been this debate about who's been the best Spider-Man. So I knew some people who were going to have some thoughts on it, and of course, most of them are comm majors. I sent the post to some friends, wanted to see who would be able to talk about it, and I whittled it down to 2 people. And by whittled it down, I mean I sent it to the group trying to get as many people as possible, and it's final season, so a lot of people are busy, and I got 2 people available, but they had a lot of things to say. We ended up having a whole hour-and-a-half long conversation that started with Spider-Man and then just kind of snowballed from there. So now it just kind of sort of looks like a typical conversation from the COMM Lab. So if you just so happen to be a prospective student and you're wondering about being a communications major at Trinity, this is kind of an idea as to what the COMM Lab will probably look like every time you come up, or not every time, but most of the time. 80 to 90% of the time. Who knows? Things could change. But I'm going to stop talking. We're going to get right into this video with Connie and Gage via Zoom. Let's get it.
It has to start with him saying, Connie, why do you have no one in your background?
I don't have anything in my background either. Why would I ask you about there being nothing in your background? If anything, I see the ear. If anything, I see the ear of a child behind your head when you move sometimes.
It's Justin Roberts. No, it's not. I
Oh,
forgot.
it looks like a child, but then it becomes an edgy teenager with bleached hair as soon as you
You
move.
can't see him. You can't see him. If I was him, I might even say, you can't see me.
The argument hasn't even started. This isn't even the argument that was meant to be here.
I can get out my wrestling belt.
Go for it.
Why did I have this in hands reach distance?
Mm.
Because I love my teachers.
Can I help?
Do you wear that in class?
I have worn this in class. In fact, I've also worn a variation of this in class. Speaking of Spider-Man, one of his villains is the Rhino.
Oh my god, you twisted the hat. So many questions. Moving on.
Not to toot my own horn or anything.
Boo.
That one truly sucked.
Okay.
Let's get down to it.
All right, let me pull out the picture again.
I like how we each have a prop.
So, what was said on Instagram? Tom Holland is the best Peter Parker. Toby has the best movie series. Miles has the most heartfelt story and best solo movie. Andrew Garfield existed.
I would say Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland both existed, and that was it, and the other 2 are correct.
Okay, Gage?
I would say that, if I'm going from a purely Marvel standpoint of things, then you have to first acknowledge that amongst the Marvel universe, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different parallel universe type things going on. So yeah,
I'm Marvel transmedia storytelling. I know about multiple storylines, Gage.
Okay, well then you can address that each one of them addresses a different variation of Spider-Man in its own right. I mean, yeah, not everybody's a fan of every Spider-Man and every variation. I'm personally a big fan of Tom Holland because he portrays like the innocent value, and his is kind of like a new story that incorporates more of the Avengers in, and that's personally a lot more fun for me because I love seeing like the crossovers and between the heroes interacting with each other to fight for the greater good. Toby and his series of Spider-Man actually did bring a lot more villains in, but he's also known for like the meme culture. Because I mean, we all know when he had this symbiote attached to him, that was the edgiest character we've seen yet amongst all the Spider-Man, despite Andrew Garfield's menacing glare at times.
Johnny?
So
Tom Holland is not a good Spider-Man.
Oh.
I do not think it's good storytelling.
Oh.
I think it's frustrating and annoying the way they...
All right, well, provide some evidence as to why you think so.
The decisions. I think it's like it comes down to his decisions. I think they think teenagers just make dumb decisions, so they can just have him make dumb decisions, and we'll be like, he's a teenager. But he makes...
All right, but...
Toby!
Are you not in a Zoom conference call wearing a WWE belt with John Cena hidden in the background there with a guy who's wearing a Viking helmet talking to you and arguing with you about Spider-Man?
You're trying to say that I can't judge Tom Holland's Spider-Man decisions because of the decisions I've made with my life.
Teenagers do make dumb decisions.
Okay, excuse me,
That is
teenager.
facts.
Whatever you are, whatever it falls under. Let me...
Facts.
Do you think I've made the choice for this to be my life right now? Do you think these were like active choices?
Kind of.
Well,
I wore this to class once. I wore it for the memes of it all and to entertain. I wear it now.
To entertain. It's funny that you say that.
What about Andrew Garfield? Can we at least get down, like, agree on Andrew Garfield?
I'm not a huge fan of Andrew Garfield because he's such like he's so aggressive. But I mean, of course, there's a variation of him, of a Spider-Man that probably like follows along those lines. I'm not a fan of him following along the Peter Parker like trope, which is like Peter Parker is supposed to be like this wholesome boyo in my head. You know, he struggles with life, but then he takes the Uncle Ben sayings, you know, great power comes great responsibility, and he applies that to his heroism and being a good hero.
Let me just start with this. Toby, Miles, Tom, Andrew Garfield's in a ditch.
Hey.
I like you just immediately brought in Miles.
Yeah. Well, he's like, I agree with the me. It's the most...
Are we only considering the ones that have shown up?
This is the big question.
In movies?
Spider-Pig and Nicolas Cage's noir Spider-Man.
Yeah.
They're the best ones. They're the best ones.
But we also saw at the very end of the movie, Spider-Man 2099, who arguably is one of the best Spider-Man out there.
But based on in the film, or just in you're talking about your knowledge?
In my knowledge.
Are we bringing in the comic books? Is this strictly film? What are we doing?
I don't know. You're the one that like we were just talking. Bree gave us like 3 people.
Miles is a part of this.
Miles is a part of this.
Miles apparently has the most heartfelt story and the best solo movie.
Miles does have a really heartfelt story, and they brought him in like some earlier comic books as well, which has really been fun seeing how they've developed him. Because I've liked how they've developed his character in relation to how we've come to like accept more and more like ethnic backgrounds into like character wise. I mean, focusing on the films, I personally did like the multiverse out of all the ones I've seen so far, and that wasn't just because it's animated, and I think you can do a whole lot more with that. I would group Toby and Andrew in their own category. Tom is in a different category because Tom's Spider-Man relevance is for the sake of more so the Avengers series and bringing it to the fruition of the Infinity War, whereas Toby and Andrew were their own kind of like separate series, I think mainly done by Sony, doing their own thing, like let's see what entertains the people. Toby was originally like, everybody was like, oh my god, Spider-Man, it was the first Spider-Man we got to see, and like they did it really well for the technology and like what they had at the time technology wise. And then we got to see some classic villains. They did Sandman well, they did Venom well, they followed the comics pretty well too. And then but then he became kind of a meme as far as that goes. And then we brought in Andrew Garfield, and he was kind of an edgier Spider-Man. I mean, he beat up, or at least kind of humiliated his bully, which I don't remember happening as like very much in the comics, really. Like he never really like stooped to their level. So in that way, that's where Andrew Garfield and his depiction of Spider-Man kind of disappoints me a little bit. Like just kind of considering that Peter Parker in his great power comes great responsibility would actually stoop to the level of like a bully and bully them back. So that's why he's definitely at the bottom of my list. Toby, brought it back around, and so he's pretty high on my list just for being like memorabilia kind of sake. Like he did the best that he did that he could with Spider-Man. He filled the role pretty well. But now I am more so focused on Tom Holland because it's not only like a different comic series that they made developing around the Avengers and the Infinity War and all this cool technology, which is basically depicting them in a different timeline. Because whenever you do that with a different Spider-Man, as a lot of like comic books I've seen, you see this progression in like supervillains especially. And I mean, as the supervillains become even more powerful and technologically advanced, you have to see an advancement in Peter Parker himself or a different Spider-Man like Miles, or as they did with the multiverse, that kind of like keeps up with those supervillains. And so it's like an always developing storyline or character, and I always enjoy that. So
I like how you avoided ranking them and just went on like a 10-minute rant about the subtleties of Spider. Dude, just say it. Tom Holland's movie, when he's in the movies with the Avengers, I like Spider-Man. I do not like his solo Spider-Man films. I will say that. That's why he's on a ditch with Andrew Garfield. Andrew Garfield has nothing redeeming, in my opinion. There's nothing redeeming about it. But Tom Holland,
I would say multiverse stuff is at the top of my list. Then I would say probably Toby, just for like introducing it and doing a really good job with it. But then I would say Tom Holland and then Andrew Garfield.
We almost have the exact same ranking.
Wait, so where's the difference?
Just the top. I would say Toby's above Miles.
No,
okay, let me put it this way. If you're doing it by film, because if you're doing it just Miles versus Tobey Spider-Man, I would say Tobey's number one. But if you're doing it based on like Tobey Spider-Man films and Into the Multiverse, I would put, based on like Spider-Man representation, I'd put Into the Spider-Verse above Tobey Maguire.
If I'm doing it by movies, I would probably put Tom Holland's stuff higher, just because I like how they've like developed his character alongside the Avengers and all that, because I personally enjoy all of that.
can it be reflected? And I don't know if this is a point to bring up, and Brie can edit it out. Aunt May. I believe the.
Okay, that is funny that what they've done with Aunt May. I'm not a huge fan of that. That they were like, let's make old Aunt May hot.
Let's make her Marissa Tomei, early 50s, just like instead of like Rosemary Harris in her 80s. Let's just like we're just gonna Sally Field's in the middle of it, but we're just gonna. They don't want to see an old Aunt May. They want one that Iron Man can flirt with.
Yeah, they wanna see her happy per se.
Which I don't like that.
Yeah, it's kind of funky. Each one has their own flaws. So like for me, it's really exciting because as somebody that's read the comics and is obviously a super nerd about them, it's very fun for me to see the multiverse because I kind of have an idea of where they can go with that. Not only in their introduction of Spider-Man that I like even better than any of the current Spider-Man that we've seen, like Spider-Man 2099, which they briefly introduced at the end of the film, but there's also more origin stories that they can do by bringing in all of these new animated Spider-Man, and kind of corresponding to that, there's a whole nother multiverse story that is actually a bit darker than any of the Spider-Man that we've gotten so far. But that goes into talking about the Inheritors, and that's a whole different thing that I think they're going to get into.
Where does Spider-Man, regardless of franchise, where does Spider-Man rank in your overall superhero rankings? DC, Marvel, like, because I don't. He's in my top 5.
Interesting.
Yeah, Spider-Man probably is,
but not top 3. He's a 4 or a 5.
He's probably in my top 3 actually, just because of not necessarily like, because I would put him together there because I love each of his characters and all the like different Spider-Man, and I really like seeing the story unfold and all the different ways that you can go about it because, like, you know, it's like a mystery. It's like, where are they going to go next? And in some of the series, they've given him like different powers. Like there's a cosmic Spider-Man, and it's ridiculous, but also kind of funny at the same time. Like he can lift an entire like boat the size of the Titanic on his own, and it's absurd. But then all of it kind of comes back to like, is he actually going to be Spider-Man? Is he going to stick by the morals that he originally obtained by like acknowledging that he should always be the big guy despite being so small?
So here's my question now. So Connie, you said that Spider-Man is number 4 or 5 for you, and then Gage, you said he is in like your top 3. So I'm curious to know, like, why is he not number 1 if he's so close to number 1?
Because Batman's awesome. Batman's so cool.
I
love every iteration of Batman. So I want to say this because I want to say why Spider-Man isn't my top 3.
Go ahead.
Because my top 3 are Batman,
mm-hmm.
Wonder Woman, and I would say Iron Man. I really like the Iron Man arc. I like all 3 Iron Man movies. The second one falls off, but I like the third one, and the first one's really good. I wish they would try and not do Peter Parker as a young kid all the time, which is why I liked Into the Spider-Verse, because it gave you those options that it feels like it's the most consistent franchise and having to start from the beginning or like near the beginning. That I just think like, I like when it's kind of like they know what they are, and even Wonder Woman wasn't exactly that, but like just the way like she discovered her power still is different. Also, Batman's just cool. Also, Batman and Robin is good, and people are lying. People are lying when they say it's bad. Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze is hilarious. All he says are puns. All he does is puns. Who doesn't love puns? Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy, as I told Mr. Freeze when I pulled the plug on his wife, this is a one-woman show. That is the top 5 lines in film.
And she was insulting me for being a nerd. The gall.
I love Batman.
You just quoted the movie lines. Are you kidding me?
I love Batman.
Do you even know everything about Batman?
I don't think I know everything, but I love him.
Okay, one of the things that I think you'll like as a Batman nerd then.
Catwoman's the best villain, anti-hero.
Oh, I agree with that. I like her development.
I just need to say this. I need to say this, and then you can say your nerdy thing that you're gonna say. When I was 5 years old, I asked my mom for 2 things for my birthday or Christmas. It was Christmas. I asked. Both were Barbie dolls based on Michelle Pfeiffer characters. I asked for a Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman Barbie, and I asked for a Michelle Pfeiffer and Grease 2 Barbie. I only got the Michelle Pfeiffer and Catwoman because, non-shockingly, they weren't producing Barbies for Grease 2, so she had to get me a Barbie from Grease 1, which made me cry. But the point is that Michelle Pfeiffer is Catwoman.
Wait a second.
It's such a
You were 5 and you wanted a Grease Barbie?
I wanted a Michelle. I asked for 2 Michelle Pfeiffer Barbies, one from Grease 2 and one from Catwoman. I got the Catwoman one. What 5-year-old doesn't want Michelle Pfeiffer in Barbie form? This is every child's dream. So say your nerdy thing. That's mine. Catwoman, I will argue, is the best villain across anything.
Villain or anti-hero? Wait, that's another question I have. So, like, what separates, like, a villain from an anti-hero? Like, what's the difference between the two?
I'm going to bring up Black Panther because it hasn't been brought up, but also my friend said something interesting. I went to go see it with my friend David. My friend David hated it. Do you know why he hated it? Because Killmonger didn't win. He was literally like, I wanted Black Panther to lose. He was wrong. Killmonger was right. They should defend themselves. And I think maybe that's a bit at the crux of, like, what's the difference between a villain and an anti-hero? I think, like, a villain is just out to destroy things, and, like, it might just be for the evil of it. Like, the Penguin. Like, the Penguin just, he had a very depressing life, but he is out to just destroy things. That Killmonger had a mission, and the mission was really to help his community. So it's
like a matter of perspective.
Yes.
Like, if they're doing it for the purpose of, like, complete greed and, like, power, then they're very much so on, like, the line of being a villain. But if they're willing to make an exception into obtaining power in order to achieve a purpose for the greater good as they perceive it, then that's kind of like an anti-villain.
Yeah, and, like, I would say I know obviously more about Catwoman's, like, media depiction in terms of TV series and film. Based on that, I would say she is an anti-hero because she does redeemable things, and a lot of it, she does not have a desire for power. That's never really her driving force. She's not trying to, like, take over the city. She just wants to cause mayhem for the wealthy. And so, like, if you watch the 1960 series where Julie Newmar and Eartha Kitt played it, she's just about messing with Batman and trying to rob museums and stuff, and it's very, like, kitschy but, like, funny. Same with the film. When you get to Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, it is very, like, very deeply felt like that she was, like, a person who was hurt, like, she was, like, killed, like, her boss killed her and she got resurrected by the cats, basically. That she's out to kind of, like, get revenge on the rich and the wealthy, and she shows human qualities at the end, and I think that also, like, endears her as, like, the showing of human qualities, which, like, is also done with Anne Hathaway's Catwoman.
So first off, I want to address something. Y'all using the word nerd like it's a bad thing. I feel like no. Hold on. Let me talk.
Yeah.
You're on the side saying nothing. Let me talk. So I feel like everybody is a nerd about something, and, like, when I think nerd, I think just, like, very, like, you just know a lot about a certain topic. Like, there's just some things that, like, you know a lot about versus some things where it's just like, So I feel like you guys were probably nerds about these kind of topics, and I don't really know what I'm a nerd in, but I'm sure there's something for me. I don't know. So I don't know if anyone has anything to say about that.
I mean, you're doing this, aren't you? You're, like, editing and putting together everything.
True.
So you're a nerd at listening to people rant.
Accurate. I mean, literally. Yeah, I think that's why I'm, like, pretty good at interviews. And then, like, I had a whole capstone where I was just, like, interviewing people a bunch. So yeah, I think I'm a nerd at things like that. So there you go.
I got you.
Thanks. I knew I was a nerd or something.
I'm a WWE nerd and a Criterion Collection nerd and a Frasier nerd. These are the 3 symbiotic things that are happening.
We would have never been able to tell with how much you talk about them.
I know. It's shocking. I know. But at least I'm diverse. There are three very different things. It's diverse interests.
Like my type of like Marvel and like superhero knowledge is like somebody will mention superheroes and then I'm like, oh, and then they're like, oh God, what did I do? Why have I done this? I can't believe I've messed up. This
messed up, bro. Did you mess up, bro?
I did mess up, bro.
Bro, I'm a nerd for saying bro. I'm a nerd for doing a bad British accent.
I hate that.
We're all nerds for making Sam mad. Sorry, Sam. Okay, that was one of my things. I don't even remember what my third one was. My second question, I've had this one for a minute. So, as someone who has not seen any of the Infinity War movies, my bad, don't kill me for it, is Thanos an anti-hero?
I think that depends on your opinion. I would say no. I think he's a straight up villain, but it would depend on who you ask.
Explain.
It also depends on the comic, like, input.
Oh my God!
I don't know.
On the films. The thing about Killmonger is, people may not think what he did was right, but at least his action lines up with what he thought he was doing. And I think with Infinity Wars, the reason he's not successful as an anti-hero as Killmonger is the action is so much more extreme than what could be, like, this is like something that's a serious issue. That would be my argument. And he has things that can make you empathetic and sympathetic to him, but for me, that does not outweigh what he does.
Okay.
Yeah. For Thanos, I would say, I can't really I have to consider him a villain. How do I explain this? I mean, yeah, he kills half of a population, like, of each one that he stumbles upon. Because he's like, there's finite resources and nothing's infinite, which makes sense. Like, even on Earth, this is something real life that we are struggling with currently. It brings a very real subject to, like, the superhero, supervillain universe and within Marvel. But what you have to think about is he's amassed, like, this empire of technology and all this other stuff, and it's pretty much just like, oh, well, if he has all this technology and all this knowledge, then couldn't he, like, at least teach people and educate them to utilize the finite resources in, like, an efficient manner and not to overpopulate. Like, there's all these little things that you can do via education and via sustainable ways that you can put a great big halt to that kind of like population growth. But he's like, nah, I'm gonna snap them.
Just literally snap them all in half.
Literally. So it's like, ooh, well.
So it seems like, from what you guys are saying, he's like an anti-hero in theory. It's just like the way that he's going about it is what's making him a villain.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And that pretty much wraps up that conversation. At least from that point forward, we pretty much just started snowballing and just catching up about what's been going on since we left for spring break, to be honest. Connie and I, we Snapchat every day. She's like my best Snapchat buddy right now. Gage, on the other hand, I don't think I've seen his face since sometime before spring break. So it's been about a month and a half, almost 2 months since I saw him, quote unquote, face to face. But I guess it's screen to screen now, which feels weird. But hey, socialize with friends. I've been seeing it on my friend's social media a lot today. Make sure your friends are okay. Go talk to your peoples. So that pretty much concludes this video. Thanks so much for tuning in. I know this was a long one. As for the more videos I make for Tiger TV, the longer they get. Sorry. I have one video coming up soon, and then that'll be all from me for Tiger TV, which is bittersweet. I'm not gonna get sappy right now, but this is just a heads up to y'all, I guess, if y'all needed one. I don't know. But until then, I will see y'all later.
I would like to nerd out about John Cena at some point because I do have stats and opinions, and
well, that's gonna be tough as you can't see them.